and welcome back to another episode of the Sinead Tips podcast. We're on the new season with a new structure. I really want to know your feedback and your thoughts as well on the podcast. And if you can, could you please subscribe, because you'll get a little notification every week saying that there's a new podcast. And yeah, that really helps me out when you give me reviews or subscribe or anything like that. So if I've helped you, and you can put your questions into the Sinead Says podcast Instagram, because we do a section at the end where I take your messages. So last week I was oblivious to the fact that life update that I was going to New Zealand for my birthday. I was going on a ski trip. No, actually I think back in it now and I'm like, how did I not know? Like, everyone was like, Sinead, you don't, because he told me we were going to this place called Thredbo, which is in Australia. And most people drive there, but he's like, oh, we're just gonna get a flight and then drive, it'll be less time. And I was like, okay, no problem. And like, I was even going to the international airport and everything. And there were so many times people slipped up, but obviously I just had no idea that anyone else would be going, or like, I just had no idea. And there was times somebody did say something random once about New Zealand. I was like, what the hell? But then Sam told me not to bring my passport. So I was like, obviously I'm not going to New Zealand. Do you know what I mean? So then when I went to it's so funny because we went to the international airport as if I didn't even notice. And everyone was like, will she not notice? I'm like, no, she's not going to notice. Like, there's me dilly-dallying along, like thinking I'm just going to Thredbo. I don't know. So funny because I met my friend as well in the airport, and she was going home, like international airport, she had still not clocking. And it was so funny because like my boyfriend's usually like really friendly, and I was like trying to introduce him and he was kind of like step back because obviously like he obviously didn't know what to say. And then obviously when I went in, I got the biggest surprise of my life. I was like, oh my God, all my friends were there and we were actually going to New Zealand for my birthday. And I just wanted to talk a bit about it, not about the trip, but like just like making friends in general. Because people do ask me that all the time about making friends, and like, I have amazing friends. For them to do that for my birthday, it's so special. And it's just like, I don't know, like, like it's so much fun to go skiing, and like even for Sam to get me that for my birthday is just so sweet. And it was just, honestly guys, it was the best weekend of my life. Like, we had so much fun. It was so good. And it kind of reminded me of this article that I wrote. It was actually one of the first articles that I ever wrote back in 2020 when I was leaving Australia. And I wrote this article called, I think it was Buy Your Friend a Cake anyway. But anyway, I'm going to get up the article and just kind of talk about it a wee bit because it's so relevant to just that amazing birthday that I just had. Yeah. So, and I'm just interrupting this podcast to talk about our amazing sponsors, BetterHelp, who have sponsored the Sinead Says podcast from day one. And you all know how much I love therapy and vouch for it all the time. It has been completely life-changing for me. It has really upped my game. And for me, it just really helped me with my performance, my self-belief, setting boundaries to be the most successful person that I can be. And it's also really helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. And it just empowers you to be the best version of yourself. So BetterHelp is convenient, flexible, affordable, and all online. And all you need to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and find a time that suits you. So to get 10% off your first month, just visit betterhelp.com/Sinead. That is betterhelp.com/Sinead. Oh yeah. So anyway, speaking of like birthdays, like a lot of people do relate to this because I actually put a poll on my Instagram. Usually for years, I barely planned my birthdays. I didn't do much, like, might go for a dinner or something, like just don't want to make a big deal. And I even like just don't ask anybody to do anything. I don't know what it is, or I do know what it is because I went to therapy and they told me what it is. Yeah, usually like and people really related to that, like not really do anything for the birthday, but it's because we're scared of the rejection. We're scared of like people saying no because that hurts us so much. And it comes down to like, when you're younger and having birthday parties and like maybe you're so young that you couldn't rationalize that people, you know what I mean? If your friends don't go when you're so young, you just think, oh my God, they don't want to go. They hate me. They don't, you don't have the rational skills to be like, oh no, they just can't go because they've got their granddad's birthday or they've got something on. Like, they're just because someone can't go somewhere doesn't mean that you aren't lovable and that, you know what I mean? It's not that they don't want to be there. And like, people just have lives. There's loads of birthdays going on all the time. It's not an issue with you if like someone just basically can't make your birthday. And when I went to therapy and they were like, you need to celebrate your birthday, I was like, no, that's not what we're gonna do now. And they were like, no, like you need to celebrate yourself and realize that like when you put yourself out there and even if someone can't go, like this is part of growing, like to know that like if someone doesn't go, it's not nothing really to do with you. And it's about like facing the rejection, even some people not going. And I actually did. I was like, oh, I better do plan something, because obviously I thought I was going away for my birthday with Sam. So I planned something the week after, and like obviously it was, people knew that it was my birthday. My birthday was, and people weren't really replying, and I was just like, no, this is part of growth. Like them not replying or saying they can't go to my like my fake birthday was teaching me a lot. I was like, it's not really like day, like it's not, if a few of my friends go, that's all that matters, as long as I celebrate myself. Like, you know, we're on this earth, and there's so little chance of us being on this earth. There's like one in, I don't know, kajillion million that like we are made and we are produced and we're put on this earth. So it's like, why don't we celebrate ourselves? So I think like the therapy really taught me like put myself out there and to make sure that I am celebrating myself. So if you're one of those people, make sure that if it's your birthday to make plans. And if people don't come, it's not really a big deal. But also like, you know, your friends are a true reflection of who you are as a friend as well. So I always feel like the past few years have taught me a lot, because I think as well, like, I don't know, like we didn't really do massive birthdays in my house. Like it would have been just like happy birthday, like a card, and like, you know, your mum would put like £20 in your card, like that. You know, it wasn't like a massive deal. It was just not really what it was about. But then like when I moved to Australia, like there was lots of celebrations around birthdays, and although it was uncomfortable for me to have my own birthday, like I loved spoiling other people and making a big deal. And it kind of reminds me of the time I left for Australia. I was in Australia and I was leaving, and I was like, oh, and the girls threw me like a going away party, and they bought me this cake. And it's so weird because I always say that like I never got birthday cakes when I was younger. Like it's so weird. I've had so many cakes now. And they give me this cake, and on the cake it said, please come back 11/11, or wishes for you to come back soon. And I can't even explain the feeling that I felt when I left Australia. I felt, first of all, I felt so sad that I was leaving, but I felt like so connected to the people that were there. I was just so close to them, and they felt like home to me. Do you know what I mean? Because I had put so much effort into those relationships, and they put so much effort into me, and it made me feel so safe and so secure. And, you know, when I was having that leaving party, like I did have a pit in my stomach. I didn't really want to invite anyone. I was like, oh no, what if people don't come? And I did it anyway, and like wanted to celebrate myself. And just the feeling that I felt, like it was such a small gesture, like people coming to my leaving party and throwing and giving me a cake, but like the feeling of fuzzy warmness I had in my tummy was just so amazing. And I was just looking at the wee article now, and I'm reading, I read this book, a few people probably have read it, called 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And it talks about techniques for friendships and business, and they're called emotional deposit. So an emotional deposit is doing something kind for someone for no reason. So let's just say your friend needs a lift to the airport, or they need you to go to the pharmacy. Like, you know, you're not getting any gain out of that, but you know, like for your personal self, but like you're helping someone out of the goodness of your heart, and it's like kind. So that's like an emotional deposit. And so emotional deposit. So this sort of gesture is investing an emotional deposit into another. So remember a time that someone else went out of their way for you, and you felt like so warm and fuzzy, like the way I felt, and that makes you want to do it back. So you're building this connection and friendship, and you're starting to feel safe and secure with all these people. But anyway, when you emotionally deposit into somebody else, like giving them a kind gesture, or they emotionally deposit into you, you then feel really safe and secure, and you feel like, oh, maybe I should do something nice for them. So then this becomes like an emotional withdraw, deposit, and soon enough you feel like you can emotionally withdraw or deposit at any point. And this builds human connection. And then human connection in itself, like what is human connection? Like we are wired for human connection. We are we are wired for, evolution has taught us that we should be in tribes, and like more and more we're doing things on our own. But we must realize that like we need connection, we need tribes to feel safe and secure. So when you think about, you know, back in evolution, when someone was left from their tribe, they felt unsafe, they felt anxious, because they didn't have people to rely on, they didn't have people protecting them or looking after them. So this is why we need to be building human connection, because obviously we don't have tribes anymore. We're doing things on our own, we're buying houses on our own, we're doing all these things on our own. Like more than ever, we need to be building these connections. And because we have our phones all the time, and we can just call people if we want, we can text people, but it's not the same, guys. It's just not the same. So you need to be like, not forcing, but you need to be like actively withdrawing and depositing, emotionally depositing and withdrawing within your connections in order to feel safe and secure. So what happens obviously when the tribe gets lost, but then when you come back, you feel safe, you feel secure. All right. And what happens when you feel safe and secure? So let's just say you're in trouble. It's 4 o'clock in the middle of the night and you're like, I need a lift. I need someone to come pick me up. I'm scared. You know, you can call that person because you've been emotionally withdrawn in a deposit with these people, and you know that they're going to answer that call. And when you feel safe, you feel less anxious. So like you do feel safer doing your everyday things because you know that if anything does happen, that there's people always there to help you out. Like if, for example, if I couldn't make my rent this month, like my friends are so amazing and I trust them to know that they would probably help me out. And that is such an important feeling. So if you're feeling like anxious, or that's one of these things, there's a book called Lost Connections. And in the book it talks about solutions and causes for anxiety and depression, and one of the causes of anxiety and depression is loss of human connection. And they did all these studies on human connection, and they did all these studies on all these different places of where there's high anxiety, high depression, low anxiety, low depression. And there was like these communities of people that are doing all these things together, and they have like low levels of anxiety because they feel so safe, they feel so secure. So if you're feeling at any way that this could be a reason for your anxiety, then you should be reaching out your hand. And like, to be a friend, you have to be a friend. And it's like, you need to ask yourself, how can I be of service to my loved ones? How can I be the love that I want? How can I be the friend that I want? So to be a friend, you have to be, to have friends, you have to be a friend. So ask, like in your journal prompts today, I even put this on my Instagram today, is like, how can I show love to my loved ones? How can I make them feel special? How can I emotionally deposit today into my life or into them? Because it is so important to have this human connection. And I truly feel like over the years when I was traveling, yes, I met friends, come and go, we had the best time, but like I didn't have the community, and I didn't have, you know, the committed place there where I was kind of all over the place. So even though I was making friends and having all these friendships all over the world, like I was craving community, craving safety, craving security. And I knew that whenever I left Australia in 2020, like I went to my final, well, what I thought was my final traveling series of my life. And I wanted to come back. I wanted that community, to build community. And I felt it in my bones. Like I just needed community. I wanted safety. I wanted to go down the street and say hello to the people. Like even now with the Brave community, we have the Brave book club, we have the Brave brunches, we have all these things. I'm seeing the same faces all the time. Like I'll walk down the street and I'll see them, say hello. I love that feeling that there's just people around and that you build community. So have a look around yourself and see if you have that safe community. And if you don't, it's totally possible. So even if we look at the emotion of loneliness, right? So you could say, I feel like if you have identified there that you're a little bit lonely and you identify with that, first of all, loneliness is an emotion that comes up, right? And what emotions are action signals. So when emotion comes up, we can act on them or we can stay within them, all right? So when you feel loneliness as an emotion arising in you, what's the solution, right? So the solution to all these things, because they're all action signals. So the solution to loneliness is reach out, ask for help, ask somebody for a coffee. All right. And then even when you're doing this, right, I think this comes with when you're a bit older as well, like asking people out for a coffee and dinner is not as easy as it was when you were in like university or school, because like, I don't know, but sometimes it's got to do with our relationship with rejection. So I always say, people do message me all the time, like I'm feeling a bit lonely, like I've just got to Sydney, or I'm feeling a bit lonely in my time, blah, blah. And I was like, lonely is an action signal and you can take action on it. So reach out, ask someone for a coffee. But if you're afraid of rejection, then that's when you're going to stop yourself from asking someone for a coffee or asking someone to do something with you. And sometimes you can look back and think, why am I so scared of asking this person out for a coffee? Because sometimes it comes down to like random things. Like you could think that even if you were bullied or something happened when you were younger, like you're scared to reach out because you feel like you're not good enough. But that's not true. You were born enough. You're amazing. All these little things sometimes make you feel like that, but that's not true. Even if you reach out to someone and ask them for a coffee or ask them to do something and they say no, that does not mean that you're not enough. So you should always reach out and ask when you're feeling lonely. Ask for a coffee, ask for these things. And let's be real, right? See, whenever you are on the other side and you've got loads of friends, and like if someone asks you for a coffee as well, like you would say yes, wouldn't you? You would want to say yes. And like, it's not because you don't want to go for that coffee if you don't go. Anyway, you're getting I am rambling here, but anyway, So if you're feeling lonely, there's a solution. You can reach out. Don't be afraid of the rejection, because the rejection does not mean that you're good enough. And remember that your emotions are coming off for action signals, and you can build these amazing friendships. Like, obviously I am feeling so loved and so warm and fuzzy. Like, I honestly felt like that. I felt like I was on a high of my life. I was just like, I was in New Zealand, like rocking around, like, oh my God, as if I'm just in New Zealand right now, like with my friends, and I did not prepare myself for this. Like, what am I doing here? It literally was so amazing. So yeah, that's all I want. That was for, why do I always keep forgetting this action? Sorry, that was the, where's my chimes? That was the, what have I learned this week? Oh, I learned something else too. Oh yeah, no, you know what I wanted to quickly talk about, because people were asking me about this, right? So obviously, if you're watching the Kardashians, and if you don't, like, you probably have seen TikToks, obviously, like, people are asking, like, what do you think of like Tristan moving back in with Chloe and all this, blah, blah, blah. And I get it. Like, his mom has passed away and she's like looking after him. I know for a fact that if I was Chloe, I would do the exact same thing. I would be looking after like my baby daddy. I'd be like, whatever you need. But in terms of like getting back together, is the way I kind of look at that situation. Obviously, there is times where people make mistakes, and you can even see the Jordan Woods and Kylie situation. I talked about this on my story as well. I was saying on that everyone was like, she should never take Jordan back as a friend. But like, if you look at the reputation of Jordan, like Jordan and Kylie, and Jordan has always been supportive of Kylie and never done no wrong by her, right? She made a mistake. She did something wrong, and it was out of her character. All right. Hopefully, like, she's older now and she's learned from this mistake, and she will never do anything like that again. And obviously Kylie and Jordan must have let each other back into each other's lives, which is amazing. I think like there should be room for mistakes, and all from everyone. But then obviously, like, they're like, oh well, then does that mean that Chloe should be taking back Christian or Tristan? First of all, it's not my business, none of my business. But I think, you know, when someone makes a mistake and they can learn from it and they do better, then you need to, like, sometimes you're just like, okay, they've learned from it, they're so much better, and you can see it, they prove it in their actions. But then, like, when someone's just continuing the same thing, you know, come on, you're taking the piss, like, do you know what I mean? Like, if they're continuing the same behavior over and over, and they're not learning from it, and they're hurting you constantly, it's like, okay, especially if you're looking at all the past behavior, and the past behavior just is the same thing, and then it just continues. It's just like, okay, where do you draw the line here? You know what I mean? Like, there's very difference if like this person really, really turns around, because let's be real, people can change. And I know people think that people can't change, but I've changed. We've all changed, and it's mad. The people that don't believe in change are the people that haven't changed. Do you know what I mean? So like, I always think, like, allow people to make mistakes, but as long as they're learning from it and you know that they're not going to do that again, like, that's a very different situation. But anyway, that's all I have to say on that, because I just thought I'd put that out there because people were asking me about it. And I was just like, it's not my business, but at the same time, I'm just like, take what, and also, like, if I was Chloe's sister, like, watching her cry every day and watching her cry at everything, and sometimes I'm just like, the disrespect, like, over and over, like, 1 time, 2 times, 3, well, I don't know how many times it's night, but anyway. But yeah, fair play to her for being, she is an angel. I'm obsessed with her. She's an angel sent down from this earth. But I hope one day that someone treats her like the absolute princess that she is. And that is all I wanted to say on that. So it is time for quote of the week. Quote of the week is from A New Earth, because we're reading that in book club, and I thought it was very relevant to what I was feeling this week, so I thought I would explain. So the quote is, he is so completely at one with what happens that what happens to him has no power over him anymore. Only if you resist what happens are you at the mercy of what happened, and the world will determine your happiness. All right. So this quote is all about resistance. And in the book, A New Earth, there's this whole section on like removing resistance. And, you know, most spiritual like books tell you this, like remove resistance and you can find your own happiness. So a good example of this is like this week I was facing a massive flare up. I was in a lot of pain from having endometriosis and adenomyosis. So like chronically ill. Yeah. And I was reading that book and I was going through my flare up and I was sitting on the sofa and I was feeling sorry for myself. And that is me resisting. That is me going, why me? Like, if I remove the resistance and be like, this is happening to me, I still have all this other energy. I have 2 legs. I can get up and go for a walk. I have so much people around me. I can work from home. I am you know, I'm so, so blessed, and I'm removing resistance by doing this and counting my blessings, because when you're sitting in resistance, you are just like having your own unhappiness, because some people are just dealt with cards. Like some people are dealt with such hard cards in life, and how they react to it is what matters. So you can meet someone who lost the use of their legs and they can have the most positive outlook ever. But you could meet someone who just lost their job and they are in the pits of despair. And the difference between those two people is the language in which they speak to themselves, right? So one of them is saying, let's go, you know, they're like taking away the resistance of life. They are taking their own happiness in charge, and they are taking a step forward. Whilst the other person who is in the depths of despair over losing their job is someone who's telling themselves that, why me? Everything's wrong. And the difference is how they both speak, right? And it's not about the situation. It's about how your thoughts about the situation. I always say this as well. It's like how you use your bus ride, right? So I used to hate the bus. I used to hate getting the bus, the 273 from home to Belfast. And, you know, that bus is like an hour and a half, 2 hours, you know, with all the stops or whatever. And I used to go, oh, I hate the bus. But it's how you use the bus ride. Then when I started losing resistance and allowed myself to make my own happiness and to not resist that car ride, right, and enjoy the journey. So I used that bus ride to meditate, to read, to journal. And then I would start looking forward to this commute. So it's how you use your bus ride. It's how you see the journey, you know, and also like if you're really late for work and all these people are cutting you off and blah, 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 you're not going to be any earlier to work, right? You sitting there foaming at the mouth, crazy, being really angry, you're causing your own unhappiness. You're going to get to work at the time you're going to get to work if you're already late. Like, release the resistance. You're going to get there when you're going to get there. To sit there and boil yourself up, cause yourself a low vibration, feel all this low attraction energy, whenever you could just loosen the rails, loosen the resistance, take a breath, and that's all you got to do. All right? So when you're going through life and you feel resistance, you can feel it, guys. You can feel it in the pit of your stomach, in your chest, all this stuff. Then you have to learn to just release resistance. And that is a great book. And New Earth talks all about, you know, getting rid of your resistance in order to live a long and fulfilled, happy life. You know, and there's another great book called The Midnight Library. And it's about this character that gets all these different lives, but gets all the lives that she so desired, and then realizes that it's her thoughts about her own situations, and that like there's bad and good in everybody's life. It's how you see it, you know, and do you resist it? Do you accept it? And even when we were doing silent meditations, obviously I did like my silence and stuff on my training, and I remember the last thing they said to me before we did our 4 days of silence. And bearing in mind, like these 4 days of silence, guys, are like, you're not allowed to journal, you're not allowed to work out, you're not allowed to read, you are solely meditating for 8 hours a day. And the last thing the teacher said to me was, accept everything, reject nothing. Accept everything, listen resistance. You know, that's what meditation teaches you all day. Like when you're in meditation, I'm telling you, I meditated this morning, my brain wanted to freaking fly out of there. I just didn't want to be in there. And I was like, release the resistance, and I am training myself in the morning to release resistance, and then that carries with you throughout the whole day. So like the first 5 minutes, you're not vibing with that meditation, you're not vibing with your thoughts, but those 5 minutes you train your thoughts, and those 5 minutes you then start to release. And then there's like, after the 10 minutes, then when you get to like 12 minutes, and then sometimes the alarm goes off, you're like, oh, I'm not done. I feel like I could stay here a little while longer. So when you actually release the resistance, you just gain this inner peace. And it's stunning. It's a beautiful place to be. Also, if you want to try meditation, you can try our 21-day meditation course with the code Sinead says for 10% off. It equals £38.98 or something. And that's with it'll be in the show notes, the Brave Way. And that's my 21-day meditation course. If you want to try that, if you want to try meditating, you can also try releasing resistance in all wakes of life. When you're waiting on a bus, when you're annoyed at something, when you're waiting for something to load. Feel the resistance and release it. Feel it and be like, oh, I can do it in this moment. And I'm just going to release the resistance. So yeah, that is the quote of the week. Thank you. So now we're going to move on to the they say section. You say I'm going to say you say now. You say, they say. Sinead says, you say. Still haven't figured that out, but anyway, here we are. So this week you asked me a few things. I'm just going to get my notes up. My best friend is having an affair with an engaged man. What do I do? I've told her how bad it is. Oh my God. I feel like I need someone else here to discuss that, because I definitely think that I would tell her that she has to do the right thing. That is so hard. I don't know. What would you guys do? I don't know. I think that I'm trying to think if I've been in that situation before. Because obviously if this person doesn't know the engaged person and the other engaged person, like it'd be different if it was like your friend or somebody that you knew. You could be like, hello, but like ringing this person up and being like, hey, my friend is having an affair with your fiance. You mean you're fucking over your friend? And also I think like I would be one of those people that would like sit my friend down and be like, this is a terrible thing that you're doing. This is terrible. You need to fix this. But obviously this person saying I've told her how uncool it is. That's what I would do. I would try my utter best to really drive it into this person, because you know what I mean? Like a person that can cheat on someone they are engaged to. Oh, I hate men. I can't deal with that. Like, why propose to someone? Why propose to someone? Like, I don't get it. Just don't do that. Oh, someone said, feel very disconnected from close friends at home since moving away. Is this normal? Like, this is very normal. And honestly, it's so sad because the time difference sometimes where I'm from to here is just ridiculous. It's even so hard to ring your mum and dad. And then obviously like your friends are so hard to get in touch with because they're so busy. But please know, when you go back, it literally just falls into place. And I think like as well, like actually tell them about your life, you know, sending them voice notes, updates, because if they're not updated all the time as well, like if they're not getting the voice notes, like they can't be like, oh, well, what happened? You know? So I have this one friend, Vicky, and she texts me all day. And I know everything about her life. So I'm like, oh, how was your boxing class? How was because like she keeps me updated. And then I'm like, okay, how was it? You know what I mean? And I actually really enjoy that. I'm like, oh, this is like, you know, you're my boyfriend and I'm texting you all day. You know what I mean? So sometimes like you have to take responsibility to keep the communication in and make time for the calls, make time for the voice notes. We're so lucky that we have voice notes, FaceTimes. Like we're so blessed. So like use them, utilize them, but also know that like when you go back, like for me, I just slot right in. It is very different, like, and you do distance yourself, but like you do slot right in and you know that those friends are always there for you and you need to let them know that you're always there for them. I'm very good at like, if it's someone's birthday, I always send them flowers, send them stuff, like let them know that I'm thinking about them. But I know that when you get older, it can be a bit difficult. But also when you move away, you're so used to speaking to your friends every day. Like I went to university and I remember calling my mom, like I call my mom every day, but I don't call my mom every day here. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like a different world now, isn't it? I suppose. But then if you do call them every day, there's so much to say. Like I know Kyle is listening to this, but Kyle, when he's not with Josh, brings Josh and his granny every single day and tells them everything about each other's day. And to be honest, my boyfriend does that too. He like will ring me and tell me about everything in his day, and like then I have so much to talk to him about. Why sometimes you feel like people don't want to know that much about your day when you're ringing them from home, but they do. Tell them what you have for lunch, what you have for dinner. It makes them so involved. Yeah, make the effort, I suppose, as well. Right, so I actually put this fun one up as well for my Instagram, right? And this started like, so we all, like on this podcast, me and you know that we are recovering people pleasing addicts and we are trying to heal, but you know, we are people pleasers, and I know you are, that you're listening to this. We like to keep the peace, and I try my best to put boundaries in as much as I can, but sometimes, like, this is a good example. I went for a couples massage last night, and I was getting annihilated by this woman. She was digging her elbows in and she was really going for it, guys, like going for it. And I'm not much of a people pleaser. I just couldn't tell her to go lighter. I was like, no, it's fine. it's fine. And I was sitting thinking the whole thing, like, I'm such a people pleaser, just tell her. And I mean, I am getting squashed, I'm getting elbowed, it's so sore. And I was just like, I was just sitting there contemplating, like, I'm such a people pleaser. Like, I am paying this person, like, the couple sometimes like $400 or $350, something like that. I'm paying this person like almost $200 and they're beating me up right now. And I don't even have the capacity to say, can you just go a little lighter? All right. So that reminded me that I'm people pleaser. Sometimes it's nice to share the love and tell you what I'm people pleaser. And also I feel like people pleasing is something that everyone does. And sometimes it's nice to know that I'm not alone. So I put up this thing on my Instagram being like, I'm such a people pleaser that and like see what people say, because that would be quite fun. So someone said, went to work with a broken back so I didn't have to call in sick. No, that is me. Like, I would do that. Like, I would literally just be coming in like, someone also said, I stay and help my babysitter with my kids even though I'm paying her so that I can get a break. I know that. We're all people pleasers. Oh my God, this is one. This is 2 people. I've only put this up like 10 minutes ago as well. So 2 people said that they are such people pleasers that they stay in a relationship and don't, because they don't want to break their heart. And you know what? I have a quote. I'm closing my eyes and I can see the quote. And it's in The Mastery of Love, and I'm gonna have to just run downstairs and get it. I'm gonna have to run downstairs and get it. Hold on. Okay, I had to run downstairs and get that quote because that was like a few people that had written their question box and they're such a people pleaser that they are staying in a relationship even though they obviously just don't want to break their heart and they don't want to be with that person. And there is so many people in relationships like this, but I'm just gonna read this quote because it's just so important to realize that everyone deserves like to be really, really loved. And if you're not in love with this person, they don't deserve that. They deserve better. You know what I mean? They deserve to find the person that suits them, and you deserve to find the person that suits you, and that you can both be in loving relationships. Maybe not with each other. Maybe your love was amazing, but like it will be amazing when you find someone that you love equally, that they love you as well. So there's this quote from The Mastery of Love. I was just thinking, I actually had this book out the other day, so I was just looking at these quotes. So it's my, I don't know, I have like this gift to remember where all these quotes are and know that I can just grab them. But okay, the quote is, be yourself, find a person who matches with you, take the risk but be honest. If it works, keep going. If it doesn't work, then do yourself and your partner a favor. Walk away, let them go. Don't be selfish. Give your partner the opportunity to find what they really want, and at the same time give yourself the opportunity. If it's not going to work, it's better to look in a different direction. If you cannot love your partner for the way they are, someone else can love them just as they are. Don't waste your time and don't waste your partner's time. This is respect. So if you respect your partner, you need to have that conversation. And that's the hardest thing, having that conversation. But you know what to do. Let me know what you think about that, because yeah. So somebody said, hey Sinead, how are you? I just listened to your new episode of the podcast and I absolutely loved it. It was so informative and interesting. I like the part about having your own things going on and not relying on your partner for everything, and being independent and coming together for happiness. I wanted to reach out though, as I feel like I'm quite independent and enjoying doing things alone and with others, but I was cheated on a while back and recently lost a parent, and I think this has made me more independent. Sorry, I lost my thing. More independent and enjoying doing things alone and with others, but sorry. This made me more independent as I felt I relied on myself a lot to pull myself through tough days. But now I feel like I'm finding it very hard to break down that wall, to let myself need someone or open myself up about the tough parts of grief. I have been dating for a few guys, so I still feel like I can't let that wall down. I'm probably not explaining this very well, but I just wanted to see if you had any books for this. So basically this is very, very common, especially if you've been cheated on and also, you know, dealing with grief here. But as someone who's been cheated on as well, and to be honest, kind of went through a whole phase of really thinking that men are not, I don't know, I just feel like I'm constantly disappointed. I've always felt like I was constantly disappointed. So I went through this whole thing in therapy where I was dealing with the belief of I'm always going to be disappointed by men, basically. So I kind of went through this belief and had to go through all this like evidence and whatever. So basically, like, I think what was going on was like, I was there's independent, right? And then there's hyper independent, like not letting anybody in to do anything, like being so rigid with your life that nobody can fit into it. And that is something that I think that I was doing as well, like in terms of like, I used to be like, well, it's my life and I'm independent, so you should be able to, you know, I don't know what I was thinking, but I was definitely not suffering, but like I was hyper independent because I've been cheated on in the past. I was very closed, like, I was like, I don't want to let anybody in because, you know, you just disappoint me. So like I had to break down all these walls, and I personally broke them down in things like therapy and reading books, and also like letting people in. And I think that we have this perception of self-love and we have to do all this stuff on our own, and but like we do need to let people in, and we do need to depend on others and let them into our lives, because that is the beauty of life, like trusting people even though we could possibly get hurt. And life is about growth, and sometimes like it's a lesson, but sometimes the most beautiful thing ever happens. So if you're recognizing those patterns of hyper independence, of like, you will notice if you're hyper independent, if your life is so rigid and no one can fit into it, you know, like say you had like a really strict routine and like you are like, oh, sorry, I can't do that, I can't do this, like this is my life. Then when you start to like someone, or you're going into relationships or you're dating, you do have to make sacrifices. And that is something that I had to learn, that for relationships to work, each person has to make sacrifices. And those sacrifices make you more vulnerable, yes. But what happens on the other side of vulnerability? Like the most beautiful thing ever. That's when change and growth and really amazing things happen. So don't be afraid to, you know, examine your hyper independence. Look at it and see, am I being independent or am I being hyper independent? Am I depending way too much on myself? And we shouldn't obviously depend on the other person for happiness. We know that. But at the same time, like, to know that we can be nurtured and loved and that we can depend on that person is so important as well. So I highly recommend like even therapy, or I'm trying to think what books that you could read. Oh yeah, Attached is a very good book, because obviously it could be an avoidant attachment style as well. Attached is a very good book for that. And the Vulnerability book by Brene Brown, I have not read that, but I've heard very good things about that. So yeah, I was there before I went to therapy for it, so there you go. And I'll leave it there because I don't want it to be too long. And let me know what you think of the podcast. Do you want more guests? Do you want more topics? What way do we want to go with it? And yeah, thank you so much, and hopefully you have a great week.